Coming to New England. My name is Alicia Aldrich, and my guest today is my mother. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
Right.
I was born in Piggott, Arkansas in 1958. Both sets of grandparents lived either in the Piggott area or in the very close by surrounding area. It was, at the time, it was all a farm community, and you traveled from one town to another very easily. My father actually lived in the Piggott area, and my mother actually lived in a very small town right outside of Piggott called Pollard. All of my aunts and uncles for a time lived in the Piggott area. As my father's brothers grew older, most of them went to Michigan to earn a living, and my father and his older brother stayed in the Piggott area to help with the family farm.
Tell me about what it was like growing up in the South as a child, especially during the 1960s and 70s. What did you like to do?
It was a very simple life. One of the things that I treasured most was working in the garden with my father. Also playing golf with my father. We were a very small community, but we did have a country club, and I enjoyed playing golf with my father. That was kind of daddy-daughter time.
I see that you have something here. Is this a cookbook? Tell me about it. How long has it been in the family?
Well, this is my copy of the family recipes. You can see it's quite large and falling apart because I use it so often. My mother was a great cook, and when I got married, I made copies of all of her recipes and made my own recipe book so that I would have them to go by. A typical evening meal would be a meat dish, maybe a roast chicken, meatloaf, and vegetables, and always had some type of hot roll to go with it.
Did you cook for your family often when you were still living with them?
Oh, yes, yes. As I was in high school and my mother and father both had jobs outside the house, they would come home for lunch, and it was my responsibility to have their lunch on the table, ready for them when they walked in the door, prepared specifically. You know.
And what about when you had a family of your own and moved out? What was cooking like then?
I did. I cooked a lot. My husband was a farmer, so we lived on the farm, and I made homemade yeast rolls every other day, cooked big meals constantly. So food continued to be a big part of our lives. As time went on, I did have trouble learning how to not cook big. I was used to cooking for large amounts of people, so cutting the recipes down to cook for just a small family, that was very difficult, and to this day, I still cook big when I cook.
Now kind of moving on to now, is food still a big deal in your family, even though your kids are older?
I don't cook often, but when I do cook, I cook all of the traditional meals, and then we could still cook very big for holidays.
Why did you give up all this good, hearty Southern cooking to come up to Rhode Island? What happened?
I met my husband. I met him in an online game called Ultima Online. I did not play the game, but I had a girl that stayed at the house with me quite often to babysit for me, and she played the game. And one night she was playing, and the phone rang, and she needed to go speak to someone on the phone, and she said, "Sit down, talk to these guys for a minute." And I said, "I'm not playing that game." She said, No, don't play the game. Just sit and talk to the people that I've been chatting with. So I started talking to my husband, Ernie, and things just kind of clicked. The first thing I can remember eating when I came to New England was baked scallops. And my husband's family owned a bar and grill, and he took me there. And I didn't know what I wanted to order because everything on the menu looked strange or odd, nothing that I had really ever had before. So he chose for me, and his mother prepared baked scallop casserole, and one bite, and I was sold. In the South, where I lived, we did not have a lot of actual fresh seafood. We ate fish, which was catfish, which was raised in, well, they called it farming fish. And people had big catfish ponds, and they actually harvested the catfish to be sold for people to eat.
And what was different from, like, having a small town relationship with your first husband to meeting your current husband online?
Everything in the first marriage revolved around the farm, the family farm. I was teaching, and then after several years, we divorced. And when I met my current husband, I had to make a decision. Does he want to come to Arkansas, or do I want to come to New England? And he promised me snow. So that was a given. So I decided that I wanted to come to New England. And life is pretty much the same. Life here is more fast-paced, definitely more things to do.
So you already talked about the fast-paced nature of living in New England as opposed to kind of the slower nature of things down south. Can you give me another reason why life is different here than in Arkansas?
I think there's just more to see, more to do. In Arkansas, everyone's main focus was their family and being with their family, and not so much here because there's so much more to do.
And do you think that those family values are still important to you?
Almost definitely, yes, yes. Family values is a big part of our life. My parents helped to raise my children as their parents helped to raise my daughter and I, or my sister and I. And there was a very close family connection.
And you don't see that up here?
I don't see that as much up here, no.
So overall, are you glad that you decided to come here?
Oh yes, I've enjoyed the experience of the last 15 years here. Wouldn't have traded it for the world, but as I grow older and my children are moving out of the house, it is definitely time to start thinking about moving home so that we can be near the grandchildren.
So kind of bringing it all back together with all these experiences that you've had in both Arkansas and here in Rhode Island and everything, what would you say is the biggest difference as an adult in Rhode Island from being a child in Arkansas? What is the biggest difference from when you were a child to now?
The pace. It is a much faster pace up here, and I think that's why we see all the other differences. And even in Arkansas, things are much faster paced now than they were when I was a child. But there's a definite difference between the South and here. People in the South are more laid back. They take time to be with their family and to do things with their family. You've heard the old saying, it takes a village. Well, in the South, the whole family is involved in raising a family, not just the mom and dad. It's the mom, the dad, the grandparents, the aunts, the uncles, everyone. And up here, you rarely see your brothers, your sisters, your parents. It has to be some type of a special occasion, for everyone to get together. There's just not that deep family connection that you see in the South.
So what about just from the decades overall, from the 60s to the 2010s, what really do you think has changed the most?
Well, in the 60s, we didn't have to worry about terrorism. We didn't have those worries. You could, with a calm mind, go pretty much anywhere you wanted to go without having to worry about any of the issues that we have to worry about now. So I think safety is a big issue, our general personal safety, and the fact that there are things that we would like to do, but maybe we change our mind because it might not be a safe activity.
So finally, just kind of to wrap it all up now, tell me your definition of the American dream. Like we've already talked about all these experiences that you've had. So after all of this time, how would you define the American dream?
Being a success at whatever you choose that you want to do, and being able to adequately provide for your family.
All right, well, thank you so much for coming today. Thank you for joining me on Coming to New England. My name is Alicia Aldrich, and thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you.